All right, friends, it's T-Man. We're back with a Blaha video. And we're going to react to the gym lifting, recruiting, fitness, gear slaves video. The bumbleclad himself of the fitness industry, Jason Blaha, says, by request, my thoughts on Mike Mentzer's training. Ah, brother, okay, his drug training.
I get asked a lot in my live streams for my thoughts on Mike Mentzer. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today, but a quick reminder, if you guys will please click like down below, be greatly appreciated.
Mike Mentzer had a big mouth. He was a loud mouth, that's what he was. And he was a drug builder, a drug addict. And he died a drug addict too.
If you are not following or subscribed, please do so. And if you will be kind enough to drop me a comment down below, I'd greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, a lot of diehard Mentzer fans are going to hear what I'm going to say here. They're going to get extremely angry at me, okay? Let me be clear. I actually appreciate Dorian Yates. I appreciate a lot of what Dorian Yates did bring and discuss in terms of training.
I don't. I don't know why Blaha would. When it comes in terms of training, what type of training? If you're taking drugs, it doesn't matter what kind of training you do. Look, man, their training never worked. They lifted conventionally, and it never worked. So what made it work when they took the drugs? Nothing. It didn't work even when they took the drugs. They took drugs because it's cosmetic. Has nothing to do with their training.
Also, I am one of the guys who says, look, yeah, you really can gain on 5 or 6 sets a week.
Yeah, let me get this straight. So you reached a genetic limit. Listen to this word, genetic limit. So how did the drugs change your genetic limit? How did it change your genetics so that you could get over this limit all of a sudden? And then all of a sudden you have this physique that looks absolutely cosmetic. Nothing, it doesn't look anything natural in a natural state, in a natural world. But it got you over this so-called genetic limit, newbie gain limit, whatever you want to call it. Huh. Yeah, okay. You understand how dumb people are out there? Oh, I've reached my genetic limit. Okay, so I have to lift and reach my genetic limit. Well, but there's people that lived 15 years and they show their physique. When did they reach their genetic limit? Here's a question I have for people. This is how stupid this is. So you see people online, they show their physiques. They go, look, 20 years of lifting or 30 years of lifting, right? And their physiques are so ordinary. They look like they reached their so-called genetic limit, newbie gain limit, genetic limit in the first year. But they continued lifting for 30 years thinking that, I don't know, they thought maybe they were going to pass this genetic limit or whatever it was. No, it was because they lifted conventionally. It's the conventional lifting that has the limit, that places the limit on you for building muscle. And they weren't damaging their muscles no more because they lifted conventionally. No damage, no growth. But they call it genetic limit. This is how retarded people are. So they've adapted to the eccentric and the full range of motion lifting conventionally. And then they go, I reached the genetic limit. What? See how dumb that is? Instead of shifting, instead of now moving into something more advanced like eccentric lifting, where that's where all the damage happens in eccentric. Because no damage, no growth. So if all the damage is in the eccentric, it's time to focus on eccentric what? Overload. To damage muscles to get them to grow bigger and stronger. Oh, I know. You were lifting, let's see, concentrically. You were overloading concentrically. You were doing the opposite. You were shrinking your muscles, getting them to be smaller and compact so that you can press a weight against gravity. Oh, yeah. Genetic limit. Yeah, okay. How is steroids supposed to bypass that? Exactly. Please explain this to me, because I'm really stupid. I don't know anything.
If they're trained hard enough, I think it's totally doable for people to make really good gains on that.
Yeah.
Even if it's not always optimal, it's still going to be pretty dang good.
Everybody's going to make cosmetic gains on steroids, dude. Everybody.
If it's done correctly, hard enough, good exercise, it's picked.
Whatever.
if it's done correctly, hard enough, good exercises picked, proper execution, so on. Now that
No. Doing that naturally is not going to work for you.
being said, the problem with Mentzer, a few things people have to think about. Whenever they
Yeah, what?
mention Mentzer's training, nobody discusses Mentzer's training. They only discuss his philosophies in the final years before his death that he wrote about. And we need to be clear, they are absolutely 100% not the same thing. The way Mentzer trained was almost just like a traditional power building approach when he
Mentzer trained like every other drug addict lifter. He shot a lot of drugs in his ass called like D-ball, primobalin, whatever they had available at that time. I don't know. Testosterone, yada, yada, yada. HGH maybe.
took second place in Mr. Olympia. His training looked nothing like the philosophies he promoted later. No one who used the philosophies he promoted later was vastly successful in bodybuilding at a competitive.
Of course not. They were never vastly successful in bodybuilding or anything because he reached the genetic limit. Get it, bro? You understand me? So without drugs, it doesn't work, his training. Get it, bro? Unless he could prove that his training worked naturally, it will not work for any of you.
Level, like to where you're like, oh yeah, they placed third in the Olympia, fifth.
Look, bro, I'm the only person on the internet that can prove that what I do will get you gains in bodybuilding, will bodybuild your body, okay? I'm the only person on the internet. There are no other people. There are people that talk about what I talk about, like eccentric stuff and, eccentric lifting, overload, whatever, but they don't really explain it to you the way I do. They don't explain it to you the way I do. And I can always bring back this damage, whether it was in full range of motion or eccentric, because I got the experience. I actually went out and I discovered it. Okay? There's the difference. But Mentzer, he never discovered what builds muscles. He never said anything about muscle damage. Builds muscles. I know that guy Yankwish, that guy from that channel. Right now he's got a video. He says that damage doesn't build muscles. That guy's crazy. That's stupid. Eccentric exercise always damages your muscles. Even in full range of motion, you're still getting damage. Now, some people are adapted, and they're still getting some damage, but the damage is so minute that your body just repairs it, and it forgoes the remodeling. That's the difference. So what do you have to do in a full range of motion? You have to overwork that muscle like crazy in a full range of motion to get that damage to come back. But people, they don't even know how to do that properly. And they don't know that it has to go through a remodeling, so it can only happen once a week. It can't happen every day due to the repeated bout effect phenomenon. It protects muscles from getting damaged with a repeated bout. Otherwise, you may get rhabdo and fucking die. I don't know. Many of CrossFitters have gotten rhabdo and almost died. And even some lifters. So, yeah, it's dangerous, but whatever. Mentzer's full of crap, man.
Happen. So there should be part of your problem, the dead giveaway. He didn't train that way.
Dead giveaway.
Right? Did he use lower volumes than his contemporaries? Yes.
Yeah, he didn't train that. You want to know how he trained? By injecting steroids.
He pushed progressive overload and some basic principles really hard. Yes. Okay.
He pushed progressive overload. Which direction? Conventionally. Which what? There's a loss of muscle there in series. So it doesn't make any sense, his philosophy whatsoever. Mentzer. His philosophy is to inject drugs and then take some hardcore recreational drugs and end your life. That's his philosophy. And end your life at 40, dead.
So
him and his brother.
We need to be clear on that part. Mentzer appeared to train pretty dang hard in his heyday.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that train pretty dang hard in the gym. They come in like you, Blaha. You're training every fucking day in the gym. I'm watching you. I don't train at all. And I look like a bodybuilder. And I still could lift heavy and do a bunch of stuff. And I don't have to come to a gym. And I take months off, years off, months off. I take weeks off. Like, this is ridiculous what you're doing here.
But he used approaches, moderate rep ranges. He didn't use a lot of really high reps. He was big on stuff like, about the 6 to 10. He used moderate volumes.
6 to 10 rep range. That's shit. That's for powerlifting, maybe.
Didn't use really he used moderate volumes. And he pushed hard progressive overload.
Moderate volumes. And he pushed heavily for what? Progressive overload. Concentrically. Yeah, okay, great. That doesn't grow muscles there. Ass cheek squeezing your muscles. They don't damage them to grow them.
Overload. Okay? Now, in light of that, you look at that, and when you understand those facts, any reasonable person who understands training would go, well, that makes sense that he did well, right? Because that's a perfectly valid way to train.
No, that makes absolutely zero sense, because unless he can prove it naturally in the natural world that it works, his phony training, which doesn't work because everybody who's tried it naturally failed at it, means that it didn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't get you over the myonuclear domain size limit. What gets you over the myonuclear domain size limit? Muscle damage does. That's what. There's the secret. The secret is out. What gets you over myonuclear domain size limit? Muscle damage. Eccentric exercise does. Eccentric overload exercise gets you over myonuclear domain size fucking limit.
So you train in that manner, which can absolutely produce phenomenal results in bodybuilding with really good genetics for it, like he had, plenty of pharmaceuticals, which he had. Particularly in an era where there weren't that many competitors by comparison. Well, of course he did really well. It's a sound training method. But when people discuss Mentzer's training, none of them do that. They're not like, yeah, dude, we do 10 sets of muscle group a week, 8 sets of muscle group a week, and a 6 to 10 rep range and push hard progressive overload failure, Okay?
Yeah, okay.
That's more of what he did. Now, he did say, I think he admitted he had only trained 3 days a week, which is, again, different. He trained dramatically different than the guys, other people on the platform there. Problem that you got to remember, too, he lost to Arnold. Arnold trained insane, excessive amounts of volume going into the show, but you also have...
No, he didn't. Arnold injected steroids, man. He didn't need to train whatever crazy.
Have to go. Arnold didn't do that in the off season, by the way.
I mean, come on, look at this physique, bro. Second rate.
That was Arnold's contest prep.
Maybe Blah's gonna
Number
compete.
4, the feeling.
He was doing that often in place of cardio. We know weightlifting burns body fat. The studies now show weightlifting is just as good as cardio. So Arnold had plenty of pharmaceutical help, right?
Cardio and weightlifting burns fat. It's cardio. It can be considered cardio weightlifting. Many people come. Here's the thing: if you come in often to the gym, that's cardio. All these people are cardio. They're performing slaves. It is cardio. What are you talking about? Right. Blah's nuts, man. Look at him. He's lifting every day in the gym. He's adapted. This is cardio. You understand me? This is endurance lifting. You're an endurance lifter. That's associated with sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Look, the more often you come to the gym and you pump your muscles, that is considered endurance lifting. That's high volume. That's sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, the phony muscles. Now, the less you come into the gym and you lift eccentrically, that's myofibular growth. It's the opposite. The less you come in, the more you build. The more you come in, the more you get pumped. You get sarcoplasmic pump. Get it? Yeah. Like people, they drink 5 coffees a day. They're not drinking because they're thirsty. They're drinking because they're pumping. They're pumping. They're not drinking because they're thirsty. They're pumping. They're pumping coffee all day in their belly. They're stupid, and then they wonder why they're sick after 40.
Recover from it. So yeah, he could do 40, 50 sets a week per muscle group, but a lot of it was really high reps, just volume, doing 4 hours a day, 6 days a week. He was also cutting up for shows. Okay, he was at that point just using it to burn calories, quite frankly. Whereas in guys like Mentzer, like, look, we just go walk and do less cardio to burn calories, do the minimum training we need to stimulate growth. They both work. It did work. Right, the issue, Mentzer's approach wasn't bad back then. It was, you look at it, and it was very...
It was bad. It's absolutely bad to promote steroids and drugs and get people to take drugs, okay? Or to trick people, take drugs and trick people that, hey man, my training is the absolute training in the world because now I took drugs and look at this thing I created, this phony physique. So you should do my training because I got the secret. He doesn't have the fucking secret, bro. He never discovered what it was. They're too stupid. They were too stupid to discover it. They're too dumb. They didn't understand it was based on damage, and this damage will last for a few days. There's DOMs associated with it, yada yada, and it goes through repair, and then it goes through a remodeling. The most important part of a damaging session is to damage the muscle enough so that it can go through a remodeling. The second step is you need to eat astronomically a huge amount of food for hours after a damaging session. Protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown for the next couple of hours. If it doesn't, the workout was a waste of time.
Reasonable, like a very reasonable. The way that he was training when he was winning, again, as a coach, even today for me, even for power lifters, I do some bodybuilders. I look at that and go, yeah, I see no reason why it wouldn't be successful. Of course it should work. Yeah, that's perfectly good, right? It's good stuff.
Yeah.
So, but when he got older and he retired, he fell apart. And this was kind of known and documented. People forget this stuff. It was talked about.
He fell apart because the drugs destroy you. They age the fuck out of you, accelerate aging.
He suffered from a lot of mental illness, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. He completely quit working out. We need to be clear.
Because he was crazy to begin with. And then he took recreational drugs and killed himself.
When Mentzer was writing all this stuff, he didn't train like any of this stuff. He never trained like that. All this one set.
Yeah, because he made it up. He was a liar. He made it up like all the rest of these lifters.
We could do one set, or 3 exercises for one set every week. So now we're down to 3. Then it started getting smaller and smaller. And as long as we go to absolute failure, we don't ever need a second set. What people need to understand, he did not train that way. By the time he came to these philosophies, he was struggling with his own mental health. He was struggling with depression, anxiety, other stuff. He quit training completely. He had actually said at one time, I just ride a stationary bike. That was his exercise. He wasn't lifting anymore. It's probably made his mental health deteriorate. And it was always said, and people are going to get mad, it was always said he used a lot of amphetamines and possibly meth to self-medicate to help with his issues. So essentially what you were dealing with at this point was someone who was actually a very intelligent man. No one's looking at Mentzer and saying this guy wasn't smart. He was clearly intelligent. And he had good training philosophies early, and that gave him a voice because he had placed second in the Olympia, and then he started writing, and he was well-spoken and well-written because he was, an intelligent guy. It was received and published.
He was not an intelligent person. He faked sophistication, and he took drugs. He pretended. He was a pretend guy.
Was new and in conflict with the current stuff, so he created a counterculture. The problem is...
He's in conflict with the current stuff. The current real stuff, his fake stuff was in conflict, okay.
It was all crazy, and it was someone who was suffering from their own mental illness.
Yes, he sounded crazy because he was nuts.
He admitted all his stuff was based on the philosophies of Ayn Rand, applying exercise science.
A real bodybuilder can see that the guy was nuts.
didn't really exist so much then, off of a philosopher's books, is, we're not in a good mental state for this. There was no evidence to support his theories. It was speculation and hypothesis he proposed.
I love that. His theories, yes, they were all theories because they were never proven in the natural world. That's why they're theories. It's all fake stuff, bro. Who cares?
That were untested. And
if you people follow Mentzer's training programs, you're going to fail along with him and probably go and kill yourself after lifting for 20, 30 years, getting zero gains. You're going to go commit suicide. You may as well. You wasted your time. You wasted all those years when you could have got all those gains in 1 year. All the real gains that you really want, you can get them in 1 year. Like, you could get massive in 1 year if you put in the real work. But you're going to spend 30 years there trying to bypass myonuclear domain limit, lifting conventionally. Yeah, okay, good luck with that, dude.
I know most of that stuff is
No wonder why most lifters are disgruntled and they go and take steroids because they failed.
And debunked. So he was essentially pushing stuff by that point that doesn't work. Like, we know going beyond failure.
Yeah, he pushed stuff that doesn't work. None of that works. It's eccentric that works.
Doesn't, right? Going beyond failure doesn't create extra muscle growth. It just doesn't. The rep you hit.
Of course. What do you mean going beyond failure doesn't create more muscle growth? You mean going beyond failure doesn't create more muscle damage? You mean so it could go through a remodeling stage? No, it doesn't. It may cause some damage and just repair, but there's no remodeling.
Failure on doesn't even cause muscle growth. We need multiple sets. But again, he was someone who had kind of gone crazy, and then people say, but he trained Dorian Yates. He didn't train Dorian Yates. Dorian Yates met up with him one time, and he kind of trained him in one session, and then he used Dorian's name after that, and Dorian said later, no, he didn't really train me, and I let him use my name because I felt sorry for him. Okay?
Everybody's laughing at Blaha. You understand me? I'm laughing. I'm not laughing with Blaha. I'm laughing at Blaha because Blaha is a failure. In all my videos, I'm mocking him. I'm making fun of him in my videos. You get it? By bringing out the truth. And he continues in his behavior, but he has changed. Now he lifts conventionally, kind of like full range of motion, in a good majority of his lifts. Notice that? See what I mean? But he won't do it on the power lifts. Watch. He won't do it on the power lifts.
People have blown that out of proportion.
See, he does that phony squat. That's a powerlifting squat. That's concentric squatting. That's not eccentric. That's not bodybuilding.
This myth.
That's more like pumping. That's pumping and not bodybuilding.
And it's a problem, guys. The methods he started promoting later in life do not work.
We know they don't work, dude. Anyways, I'm out of here. We've always known that Mike Mentzer's lifting doesn't work. And that's why he died, okay? Because it didn't work, so he killed himself. Because he discovered it didn't work in the natural world after he got off his drugs. See you in the next one. Like all these other people in the natural world, they all killed themselves because they discovered they were following a freak. See you, a phony. See you in the next one. Ciao, friends.